Good morning, Facebook family. We are Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Boston, coming to you from 50 Dudley Street in Cambridge, Massachusetts. My name is Reverend Ed Tansey, and I, along with Reverend G. Stewart, are privileged and we're honored and we're grateful to be the co-founders and spiritual leaders of this wonderful spiritual family. And at this center, we learn and we practice the science of mind philosophy, which is the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought. I invite you to visit our website, cslboston.org, to find out more about our spiritual family, this wonderful, phenomenal philosophy called the science of mind, and see how our community can serve you. And if you are being spiritually fed by our message, you can include us in your prosperity circulation or tithing practice with your tax-deductible contributions that you can make right online. So we welcome you to our talk this morning. So the 2018 theme for CSL is 100 Years of Science of Mind. And October's theme is Abundance and Wealth. Prosperity, abundance, and wealth. And today's topic, everyone, is, ta-da, I love the curtains, getting and giving. Getting and giving. You know, when I first saw this topic, getting and giving, what came to my mind first was spirit. Spirit has already given all of its creations, and we're all of its creations, the gift. And that gift is the gift of life itself. All of the qualities, people of spirit, all of the qualities, and you know them, which are peace, joy, love, compassion, intelligence, wisdom, abundance, creativity, infinite potentiality, that's just to name a few. These qualities flow through us naturally. And it's the use of these gifts as we uniquely express them that is the measure of how much we are willing and able to receive. To receive. As we give, we do receive. And as we uniquely express, we do receive. Because remember, we're all unique, individualized expressions. So now this brings me to Jesus, who clearly articulated the divine law. Slide. Give, and it will be given to you. Give, and it will be given to you. Found in Luke chapter 6, verse 38. Okay? There is one thing that I want to mention concerning this divine flow. Or should I say it this way? There's one requirement. And that is that each of us, each and every one of us, must consent to be a receiving channel of this divine flow. You may shut that slide now. We must be a receiving channel of this divine flow. I like how Eric Butterworth in Spiritual Economics related to this, and I paraphrase from this. He said, it is like the water faucet, which must be open to the flow in order for that water may pour out and pour forth freely. So Jesus was stressing the need to get into a giving consciousness in order to sustain the flow of good into one's life. Now, Jesus stated the following also. Show the slide, please. Before ye call, I shall answer. Before ye call, I shall answer. What do you think this means? What do you think this means? Anybody?
Good is already given.
Good is already given. Thank you, Martine. That's what it is. That means that every good, so right, and perfect gift is already ours. Is already ours. It's already in our being. And here's the next part, I think that's important. It's in everyone's being, awaiting their recognition. Their recognition. Awaiting their recognition. One must recognize it in order to experience it. Would you agree on that?
Yes.
So as Florence Scovel Shinn stated in The Game of Life and How to Play It, man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. Any of us can only receive that which we see ourselves receiving. Now, what this reminds me of is myself going to a buffet. Ooh. Now, some of us might know that might be dangerous for Rev Ed, but that was the older Rev Ed, years back. Okay? But now let's talk about the buffet. You know, food I love. A buffet with a humongous banquet table filled to the brim with infinite possibilities of what one might desire to eat. Does that sound scrumptious and familiar to some?
I'm getting hungry.
Oh, me too. We've got some good stuff for fellowship. Okay, so all one has to do is to be open and willing to receive their desires of what to eat. Would you agree? The possibilities are there for the taking, for the receiving. Each of us have choice. We have choice. And what you do with that choice is the important part. What and what amount is there for you to choose from? For you to receive, for you to be open to, for you to experience. So, as Ernest Holmes quotes from page 42 in the Science of Mind text, it is the nature of the universe to give us what we are able to take. It cannot give us more. It has given all. We have not yet accepted the greater gift. Take that into contemplation this week. So let's go back to one of Jesus' quotes that I previously mentioned. Given it will be given to you. This quote brings to mind what I read in Living in the Science of Mind on page 346, which was about one of the laws of radiation. And it stated that the absorbing power of a substance is equal to its emitting power, and that means the ones that absorb the most must be the ones which emit the most. Or to state it in another way, we can take in only what we are giving out. We can take in only what we are giving out. So you see, I think it's also saying everything like moves in a circle. It moves in a circle. Everything bends back upon itself. As a man sows, so shall he reap. And so must he reap until he sows differently. Differently. So as we give, we so receive. And I really feel, and I believe that, we can only give of our time, our love, our attention, our energy. So we can always give of that. And that it depends on however we want to express it. And it doesn't really cost us anything. Does it cost us to be kind? Does it cost us to be giving? Does it cost us to be paying attention to others? No. It really doesn't cost us anything. And what a nice energy to radiate out, I think, to all of humanity. This is so doing our parts to lift the vibrational energy of humankind. It really is. You know, as written in Deepak Chopra's book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, and I quote, I guess I don't quote. All right, I will quote it. You won't have a slide. I don't know where that slide went. In the ethers of the universe. But anyway, here's what I quote from that. The universe operates through dynamic exchange. Giving and receiving are different aspects of the flow of energy in the universe. So you see, they're really different parts or facets, but are one of the same because they're of that flow of energy. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, you know, I'm also now going to paraphrase this from his book. So, if, very simply, I think, if one wants love, one has to be love and give love. If one wants joy in their life, what does one need to do? To give joy to others. If one wants to experience more attention and appreciation in their life, one needs to give more attention and appreciation. And if one wants more of an experience of material affluence in their lives, one must help others to be materially affluent. So you see, when we practice the law of giving, it's so very simple. Does it sound hard? Think about it. I think it's pretty simple. You know, what we want to receive, we must first be it. And then we must give it. It's not hard. We must be what we want to receive, and then it should be. You know, let's keep in mind when we talk about giving and receiving, it really doesn't boil down to that you give because you expect or want something back. Really. When one can give openly from their hearts, with no strings attached, let me tell you something. The reciprocal nature of the universe automatically gives back to us. So it's my hope that when one gives, he or she gives for the pure pleasure and joy of the giving. You know? And it brings me back to one of my stories I want to share with you of years ago when I first started Science of Mind studies in 2002. The place, Palm Springs Spiritual Enrichment Center, my first home. With whom? Reverend Matt Comp, really my first Science of Mind mentor, who I love very dearly and was such an influence in my life. So one time we were in conversation, you all know that I don't like to speak a lot, or talk a lot, whatever, but I was in conversation with him, and I was explaining to him how difficult it really was for me to accept someone doing anything for me. Buying me a cup of coffee, taking me out to dinner, helping me with something in the house or the yard. It was very, very hard for me to accept, to receive, and I would kind of not accept or receive. And here's what he said to me. He said, Ed, you don't have the right to take someone's joy of giving or doing something for you. You don't have that right to take it away from them. Plain and simple. And he said, I want you to take that into contemplation in the next week. You don't have time. You don't have the right to do that. And he always says, remember, if someone wants to do something for you, let them experience the joy that act of kindness will bring them. So I sat with it for a while. I did what he said. And then I really soon came to realize how sensible what he said was. So I say, the more we have the opportunity to give in life, in any avenue of giving, whatsoever it may be, that's where I want to come from. I really do. And again, like I said, that the reciprocal nature of the universe is always at work. Always at work. You know, and keep in mind with what Whitman said, that the gift is most to the giver and comes back most to him or her. And we all know that since the universe, right, is in balance, and it is, right? The universe is in balance. Nothing can leave any point without equal something returning to it. And I'd like to add this to that. Without an equal or greater something returning to it. So I ask you to keep in mind that the giving and the receiving, they're at the center of our being. The going out from us, is but one end of what is coming back to us. And as I said, that everything moves in a circle, and really the coming back to us is merely the other end of the going out from us. Namaste.
Thank you, Reverend.
You're welcome.
Awesomeness. As always, inspiring. So, I want to talk to you about three things today. And the first one was actually going to be something, it was going to be a story, Leo Tolstoy's story of the two old men, but instead it's going to be the story of two newly ordained ministers marrying someone and taking a huge chance in the world. The second one is that the gift is already given, which we've heard from Rev Ed, and the infinite is calling us to prove it in our lives. And I want to go into that a little deeper. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the power of gratitude. And I know many of us know the power of gratitude and how it builds. So these are the three things I want to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is that this weekend, some of you may know that Rev Ed and myself chose to perform a wedding ceremony in our yard. This is something that we've been working up to for a while, and this is through his prison ministry. Okay? And so this individual who we were performing the wedding for is in the news, majorly in the news. After 30 years of being in prison, a convicted child rapist. And we chose to perform the wedding ceremony for him and his betrothed, his wife, who is now his wife. So we chose to step into something that could blow up, and actually did. But it blew up in a way that has awakened something in both of us. It blew up in a way that has caused something amazing to happen. So we chose to do this in our home, in the privacy of our home, separate from the world outside. And what happened is something that we thought would just be very quiet and calm turned into something very loud and brought us into the local news scene, and I'm sure we've been seen in other places as well, for bringing this horrible person into our neighborhood. Now, I understand that sometimes we talk about these different things, but what do we believe here in Science of Mind? That everything is God, all is God. So God is in every individual, right? And it's tough sometimes to see the God in all individuals, right? But that's what we chose to do, was to see the God and to get to know this individual who has done a lot of work. It wasn't just 30 years in prison. It was over 15 years of personal work with a psychologist in prison to work on themselves. So we chose to do something saying, this is what love would do. the Christian movement has, WWJD, what would Jesus do, right? Well, what would Jesus do? Jesus would love, right? He would stand in love, and we stood in love. And we stood up for something that was powerful. And we did it in a neighborhood where we thought we knew our neighbors really well and that they all loved us. And it turned around on us. It turned around to a place where we were stunned with the things that happened. We were in absolute... What happened early on is like before we actually had the service yesterday, the detectives from the Cranston Police Department met with us and said, we are aware that you're probably going to be having a wedding service in your home. We were a little stunned that was already known. And so they said, that we just want you to know that, we are here to serve and protect you, and that there will be detectives, plainclothes detectives on the street tomorrow. So we were prepared for that, and they were wonderful. They were really, really powerful. Unlike an officer of the same police force who chose to go on social media and say, I heard that this person is also getting married somewhere in Cranston either this weekend or the next weekend, and I hope someone interrupts it. That went to my heart. So this is an officer of peace. A peace officer, right? Isn't that what we call our police officers? They're peace officers. And this person is asking to incite something. It's no different than yelling fire in a theater. I'm sorry. But that's a whole nother piece. We had come to us people who were peacekeepers. These officers who came to us were peacekeepers. So they weren't going on social media and they weren't trying to incite crowds or people. Unlike the mayor of Providence and the council person in Providence who is inciting people to scream and holler in front of the house where this man lives every night. So we are standing in love. We are standing in love, and we chose to stand in love. And so we did this, and everything was going really well. And then the news media showed up on our street, and all of the neighbors came together. And I don't know what was going on out there because we closed ourselves off from the world. We stepped into our backyard and our house, knowing that the police were where they needed to be and that we were all safe. And we were soothing and comforting those who were with us in that place of peace and love and kindness, because that's what we're about. And this was a day about love. And it was a beautiful day. The sun came out, and it was a beautiful day for a wedding. And it was a beautiful wedding. And it went beautifully. One of our neighbors, who we thought we were the closest to, allowed the news media to step onto her back deck to videotape our backyard. So we ended up splashed all over the nightly news. My face. Rev G, not Rev Ed. Wait a minute. This is his ministry. Doesn't matter. The universe has something. So what happened for me is this. And how this ties into this whole idea of abundance and getting and giving and all of that and how it works is that it woke something up in me. Something woke up in me. And I said, you know what? I have to stand up and say something. I can't sit quietly and let this ride. There's something going on in the world that's unacceptable to me. And I have to stand in love. So what I am going to do is I'm going to reach out to that television station and I'm going to say, I want to say something. I want to talk to you. I want you to hear something other than the fear and limitation and negation that you are planting in the world. And that's what I'm going to do. Even Rev Ed said to me this morning, he says, and if they won't do it right, I'll go to 60 Minutes. Why not? I mean, there's something to be said. How do we stand up in the world? So this actually leads me to the next part. Because the next part is that I am answering God's call in me. I'm answering God's call. Because if I can love this individual and I can let go of their past, then I can help others to do the same in their life on maybe lesser things than what this person has been through. And that's what this is about. That's what we're here to do. So this comes to, that the gift is given, right? The gift is already given. The infinite is calling us to prove it in our lives. I am being called to a higher level. I am being called to stand up in a world where people are not standing up as much as we need to about the truth, right? So this leads me to a biblical quote, which I think has always been something that has been always spoken to my heart. This speaks to me at a whole different level now. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there will not be room enough to receive. Wow. Right there. In Malachi 3 verse 10, God is saying, prove me. Prove me. And I am proving God now. I am choosing to prove God. It also reminds me of Edwene Gaines, and you've heard us speak of Edwene Gaines here. I mean, this is a woman whose ministry is to bring prosperity and abundance to the world. And she took that biblical quote and she took it at face value. She says, I'm a very literal person. And she really is. I love her. She's the most wonderful Southern woman you could ever meet in your life. So Edwene said, okay, I'm going to step into this, God, and for the next 6 months, I'm going to tithe where I'm spiritually fed. I am going to follow the rule of tithing, 10% of everything that comes into my life, and you're going to prove this. She didn't say, I'm going to prove this. She said, you're going to prove this, God. And she kept doing it for those 6 months. Even in times when it was hard to put food on the table or whatever it was that she was doing, she chose to do it, and to this day she still continues to practice it. Why? Because this woman does not have debt in anything in her life. She wants a car, she goes out and she pays cash for it. She has proven this. She has proven this truth. Am I proving God in my life? In abundance, in the way I show up, in service, right? We are here to serve, and we serve each other in our community sometimes, but sometimes in the world, we sometimes maybe kind of like play it small. And I don't want to play it small anymore. So be prepared. Don't be surprised where you might see Rev G. You might be showing up in places, oh my God, what now?
Will you be signing autographs?
I will definitely be signing autographs, and first in our community. So she lives a life of glorious abundance. And I know that stepping into this, because when I explained it to Rev Ed, of course I was crying. I could hardly even keep myself because something awoke in me. And I call those tears of joy. Tears of awakening into who I am as a spiritual being. So something really exciting is going on. And I don't know what it is or how it's going to show up, but I know that it's going to be amazing. And so Ernest Holmes reminds us about gratitude. He's so wonderful when it comes to these things, reminding us of gratitude. Oh, I'm sorry, this actually is the part after Malachi that he goes on to explain about Malachi. He says, perhaps things are better than they appear to be. It is as though the prophet is telling us that even the divine bounty itself, lavish and extravagant as it must be, awaits our acceptance. Rev Ed said this, right? It's awaiting our acceptance. This thing that happened for us this weekend was awaiting my acceptance. So it's the same thing. Possibly we have been holding our bowl of acceptance and our chalice of life upside down. Anybody done that? Yeah, we've all been there. We've all done that, right? Can't catch any of the good stuff from holding it upside down, right? So it's important to realize that. So that even the fruit and wine of the Spirit cannot be poured into it, yet the windows of heaven must forever be opened. I love They are forever opened. It's us that needs to accept it, that needs to step into it, and needs to say, how can I prove the divine in this? In my life, in all different ways. Are we ready to do that? Are we ready to prove the divine? I'm ready. I'm ready to step forward and say, you know what? Use me. We sing that hymn in here. We sing that one. Use me, oh God. That's it. That's what we're talking about here. So the last thing I want to share with you is that we talked about the gratitude. And Ernest Holmes tells us in The Science of Mind, appreciation, gratitude, and thanksgiving, the motive powers which attract and magnify the hidden potentialities of life. So I had to move into appreciation for what was awakened in me. And I know it's been awakened in Rev Ed, but I'm talking about me. It's been awakened in me. Something new is happening. Something joyous is happening. How do I show up in the world as love? That's the important thing. How do I show up in the world as love? And everything else is given. Because the law is just automatic. If I'm showing up in the what it is, the how is provided. The how is given. So I would just ask you, will you join me in really listening, in really accepting the truth of whatever it is that's calling in your life, and prove God in this? Will you join with me in that? Namaste. If you will.
Taking in this deep breath, being here in this place. The purpose of this treatment is to understand who I am, how I show up in this world. I know as I breathe in this air, it is all one, it is all God. I choose to call God, it is divine. It is love, it is acceptance of this knowing, this one infinite dwelling presence that is in and all within me. I am one with this infinite love, abundance, divine presence. I am one, just breathing that into that center, to that place. I know this, as I know this truth for me, I know this truth for each and everyone here in this place here today, in the universe, in all of creation. As I show up in love for all that is, each and everyone breathes in that love, is that love, is that divine essence. That harmony, that peace, that joy, that giving, that love and breathing in that. Breathing that in. As God, use me, show me, guide me to that loving source, that eternal place, that gift. As I show up, as I give this love, I know that I receive. I am accepting and receive this gift. As I receive, I shine this light, this knowing that each and every one shines their light even brighter. Just breathe that in. Be with that moment. Know, feel that harmony, that peace, that essence, that presence. It's divine. That just radiates. As I show up in this world, I know that presence shines through each and every individual, each and every living spirit who love this planet for eternity, for all that there is. I accept this. I accept knowing this truth. I know this truth. I know it deep in my heart. And everything that I do with grace and gratitude and love for that divine. That spirit and that energy that guides all, is all. As it flows through each and every one. The peace and love that the universe is truly is guided to that. I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to accept this presence in my life. To accept this knowing, to know that the divine is working through each and every one all the time. This gift is forever giving. Forever giving. And I accept. I am so grateful knowing this truth, feeling this, and as I go through this day and know that I give that love, and I receive and accept that love. And each and every one is blessed of this presence. I ground this prayer, this truth, in the spirit and law, and saying, it is all that there is, it is life. It is presence, it is done. Please join me in saying,
And
so it is.
And let's join together in our affirmation. This comes to us from Reverend Janet Tobin, CSL Santa Rosa. I give and I receive from the one infinite source of life, love, and abundance. I am an open channel for good. Want to do it again? Yes. I give and I receive from the one infinite source of life, love, and abundance. I am open channel for good.